Welcome back to Future Form with Lauren Franco. Today I'm speaking with Edgar Aguilera, a fashion designer and educator whose work merges artisanal menswear, experimental construction, historical silhouettes, and contemporary visual culture. Through his label, he creates one-of-one garments that blur the boundaries between fashion, sculpture, and storytelling, exploring clothing as a form of personal mythology and a way to imagine new identities. Drawing inspiration from sources as diverse as Renaissance painting, ancient Egypt, and tailoring traditions, his collections invite us to see fashion not simply as something we wear, but as a medium for transformation. Alongside his design practice, Edgar is deeply committed to education, having taught fashion design, entrepreneurship, and material exploration while encouraging new ways of thinking about creativity and craft. One quick note before we begin. We actually recorded this conversation a couple of months ago, and since then, Edgar has released a beautiful new collection, The Sad Kids of the Renaissance 2. So after listening, I definitely encourage you to go check it out. Future Form with Lauren Franco. Lauren Franco. Future. Future Form. Future You're listening to Future Form with Lauren Franco. Edgar, thank you so much for being here. I want to start off with how do you personally describe your practice? And do you see yourself primarily as a fashion designer, an artist, or something else entirely?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you, Lauren, for having me. Yeah, I my practice has always been into the construction of things, specifically with textile. So I will consider between a fashion designer and a textile artist. I my practice have come since like the know-how of doing things like menswear tailoring. I studied for a couple of years before doing my undergraduate program in fashion and textile design. I did my research, like where should I find all these techniques and those skills that I'm needing for doing a beautiful garment or a beautiful piece. So I dive into like looking into menswear, and that brought me into tailoring and having the greatest tailors to show me their own skills, how they do handmade work, construction wise. From that, I did a lot of things between menswear, more bespoke design, then into retail, doing my own practice too, into my own collections. So it's been a little bit of looking at all the things that are happening in fashion and getting to know the different things are in terms of production wise, how different is from doing a bespoke garment that sometimes it takes like 3 months, and then going to retail and that you have to be like all the days you have to start a new collection. All days are doing new things, new productions. So it's a totally different scheme in fashion. And that also have brought to me, my own practice, like different vision and different terms of like how to incorporate that into my own collections.
Amazing. And what made you want to get into fashion in the first place? Or were there certain early influences that really made you want to?
Yeah, totally. Since I was a little kid, I have always been creative, and I have always loved to do, as I was mentioning before, like things with my hands. Like, is it painting or sculpting with plasticine when I was a kid, or doing handcrafts, like whatever. And in my high school, I was very privileged because we had a program that it was like something very different from like any other school that I know, that they did a fashion show, and it was part of like extracurricular activity where students were pushed to create something based on jeans and then do whatever you wanted on top of that. For me, it was a great opportunity, and I was like looking forward to participating in that project since I was like in elementary school. Always saw like the the high schooler students like doing that. I was like, yeah, I want to do that fashion show and participate, having a model, selecting my music and everything. And then I asked my mom. She was also always interested in fashion, and she always loved to buying like magazines and getting what's happening in the fashion world. And I asked her like, would you recommend me like any fashion designer to look forward, like to check his work or her work or whatever? And she told me like, yeah, check like Christian Lacroix or Dior or all those big names, Valentino, like the all those names that we have in our zeitgeist of like who are the greatest like designers from the past century. So I started looking at that, and then I started like a rabbit hole of checking out like, oh, there's still the house of Christian Dior, but like several designers have come through that. Like, and at the time there was John Galliano, and I saw his work, and for me it was unbelievable. Like, this is a piece of art. Like, it's not fashion anymore. It's a production theater piece done for only 10 minutes, where the models are portraying a character. They're walking in a different way in each collection, in each presentation, because it has to do with the theme of the what the designer was inspired by, the music, the whole drama of it was what really engaged me into fashion. So I love how it was portrayed. So that's where I started, like, and the rest is history. Like, I started looking at fashion shows every day and getting so much interest and being such a geek on like all those different designers and the different aesthetics and the references. So yeah, I will say that it's been at least like 15 years in the making, at least like half of my life, checking what's happening in the fashion world and what's happening in the textiles. I will definitely say that it started like, I don't know if it was a very young age, but at least it was since I when you start like selecting like what should I study, and I was like in between like architecture or industrial design or fashion. So at the end I ended up in the fashion world.
Yeah, I really appreciate that because I relate a lot to that answer actually. As I said, I kind of felt the same way and still feel the same way about fashion as much as even though I'm in architecture. And of
Yeah,
course the two cross over a lot. But also just that experience of fashion is such an endless rabbit hole you can go down of even looking
correct.
at kind of these legacies of even the houses and endless
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
archive to go through, which is amazing. That
Correct. Yeah,
can
yeah, yeah.
inspire so many people to enter. With your own label, you often explore ideas of personal mythologies. What does that idea mean to you? What are you trying to cultivate with your own label?
Yeah, so since my very first collection, I got into this concept for the whole production of contemporary individualism. So my goal is to do these one-of-a-kind pieces that are the most like essence of the like singular artifacts almost that are like something very similar to what you see in a museum. And I'm not saying that it's in the terms of art, but more into like looking at an armor and looking like how it's a one of a kind piece, because maybe there's the knowledge of bringing that to life has been forgotten, or maybe the rest of the armors that were from maybe this specific king or whatever were destroyed, and this is the only piece that we have. So having this like very specific construction for each piece, a specific technique of fabric manipulation for each garment, it makes it unique. So my idea is always doing artifacts, how I call like the garments, as a kind of reference to what we're living right now, where people are wanting to be one of a kind. We're in this world where individualism is our motto in life. Like, we want to be part of a group, but we also want to be outside of that group. We want to stand out from the rest, whether it's from through our clothing, our liking, and our what we do in life, how we post on Instagram or any social media. We want to be seen, so that's what my garments are about. They're for you to be seen and to identify, but also feel like you're part of something else, like you are your own creator. No, that's how I will put it, like you're creating your own persona through my clothing.
Yeah, I also wonder in that idea of persona and your garment allowing someone to put on a new identity, especially when you're engaging with maybe like historical references, but you also make them feel contemporary at the same time. What draws you to specific historical imagery? Is it usually about kind of the aesthetic, or is it about the identity from a specific time or seeing how people express themselves then, kind of going off of that?
Yeah, I always go back to something that it's very personal, and it depends whether it's a trip that I have done or something that I'm living in life that relates something to something that I have seen. So I always try to choose things or to reference things that I'm living. Is not something that I maybe part of, as you mentioned, like an historical references. It's nothing that I have experienced, right? Like it's not something that I was wearing armors or I was living in ancient times or whatever. But it's something that we are related to it by the aesthetics, by the way that it has also transformed our world, how we see. So the other day I was on my latest pieces that I'm doing right now. They are referencing right now that I'm living in Chicago and having all this living in the US for the first time, and a little bit of what's happening right now politically, and not only here in the US, but like what's happening outside. No, what's all these conflicts and everything. So this latest piece that I'm doing is all about workwear, but also the garments that are worn in war, uniforms, hats, all those berets and hats that are worn in war, and specifically by the U.S. Army. And just checking the garments, I went to a store here in Chicago that they thrift used garments from the military and new ones. And when you see that, I was talking to the guy who was helping me to get some of these pieces, and I told him, like, when you see like how all these garments are constructed in terms of design, fabrics, everything. This is all where menswear is about. Like this is the mecca of menswear. What as we know it, it's all based in military garments. So what I'm talking about is going into maybe these references that maybe we think we know, but actually it's like going back to history, and these are things that are being done for 100 years ago, 200, 500 years ago, and we think they're something new, but it's like, like it's been done like this. Humanity have done it like this in this way. Obviously there's evolution of the garments, evolution of how we of our needs and everything, but when you go into this historical references, you go, okay, this is how it transformed into something else that we thought that it was something new, but now actually it's been referenced and it's been used like that for centuries, no? So it's mostly like my own references on diving into history, diving into like wanting to find what was that first, I don't know, moment in time where it was originally done. No, there obviously there was a beginning. No, so it's always going back to that. That's how I see bringing something that we think that it's a past, but it's actually something that it's still in our present. No, like and the most when it clicked, and it was a few weeks ago, it was like, yeah, this is like garments from World War I, and they're still being used, or still being styled today, like the crop jackets, or maybe the flaps from the pockets, or maybe some elements of the garments are still, you go to any place in the store right now into menswear and you still see those things, and they're still there. So it's always going nice to have going back to history. And I was once had a professor who told me like it's always so nice to get like a cultured reference anywhere, like in art, in photo shoot, in architecture, in design, whatever it is. But it's always so refreshing to have a culture reference of like something that it's been done in the past. Because I don't know, like talking about architecture, one of my favorite architects is Luis Barragan. He was a Mexican
Me
architect.
too.
Yeah, it's for
Yes.
me it's amazing. It's for me it's like everything that I love about fashion but applied in architecture, where it's emotional, when it's transforming the way you get into an atmosphere. As I see that in clothes, like it's transforming the way that you walk or maybe you act or you see yourself. I think his architecture has the same thing. But then you see what he did, and something that even he said, like, don't do what I did, look for what I saw, like what I reference. So it's always talking about this colonial Mexican, very traditional architecture, where wide, thick walls, convents, churches, something that it was on 300 years ago. But he's applying it into what we are living right now, when people are looking for a pool to have in their houses. But how can I adapt it to feel the same way that maybe it was done 300 years ago, for a pool for horses to go inside and wash themselves, like after a ride, no, in a while riding a horse. So it's like, yeah, before it was for the horses. Right now, for us, is to have somewhere to get some sun and tan, whatever. But it's applying it into the like different necessities, and I think it's the same thing in fashion, or like applying the things that they were done before, but into like the necessities for the now.
I'm smiling so big is because I love Baragon so much.
Yeah,
And I always think like I hope that through my architecture or the research I do that you can make someone feel the way that I think he makes someone feel in his
yeah,
spaces.
correct,
And I completely agree with also how he's borrowing references but making it contemporary. Um,
correct.
and I
Yeah.
guess in your own work, I'm wondering how you're kind of taking these cultural references and you're allowing someone, when they see it, then they can link it to this lineage or history, but you're
Yeah.
also giving it new meaning. Or maybe in the case of the project you're mentioning now, you're questioning something or trying to critique something. So, what are the ways in which you also construct that story and kind of construct maybe even a tension with what you're referencing or putting it in a new context?
Yeah, it's always about like the deconstruction, both of the garments, but as well as ideas. And when you have two opposed ideas, I think it's always the result of unifying two things, three things that are totally opposed, and then having that result, it will always bring something new. In my past collection, it was this idea of Renaissance garments, and I also had just went to Paris, and specifically to Normandy at the north of France, that to Mont Saint Michel, that it's like this impressive place that it's almost like you're in heaven, no? Like in the middle of the shore and the beach, there's like this beautiful town surrounding a beautiful church where Michael appeared, no, 100 years ago, and everything was constructed around it. So seeing that impressive image and the armor of Saint Michael and everything, but I also wanted to relate that to my childhood and seeing the world as a childlike experience. Sometimes in this world we are not getting impressed about anything. No, I think it's already something that's been said so much, but I think we have to talk about that. That we are so overstimulated by everything. Where first thing that we wake up and we check our cell phone, and the last thing that we do is checking our cell phone, and we're 80% of our day in front of a screen. So getting impressed is so strange right now. It's almost impossible. So my idea was of like getting back into that childlike experience of putting the garments and even the model as kind of a toy. So all the selection of both of colors, of textures, on everything, I wanted to make you feel like you're looking at like a toy soldier, like something that it's something. Even the presentation I wanted to do, it comes from like the several videos where the model is scanned in 3D, and the way that the model is manipulated digitally, I wanted it to feel like you're manipulating a toy, like you're looking underneath and you're looking up and you're looking to the sides and you're playing with it. So that was the idea of the whole concept of the collection, to have this back to my childhood and how was playing with my toy soldiers or whatever I was doing, and seeing this world of old and getting impressed about that, and maybe not so much of a high scraper in New York, no? How you can get impressed more of something that was 600 years ago. And maybe, yeah, it's beautiful, a beautiful building, and obviously it tells you about the marvelous things that technology has done with the new techniques in the modern era. But those people 600 years ago, they were doing everything by hand, and now we have computers to do it for us, and we have AI, and we have so many things, even like the Barcelona Sagrada Familia, no? Like it was finished 100 years ago, or I don't know more, uh, because of technology. No, that it's a marvelous thing. But 600 years ago, it was done only with human minds and human brains. No, I think we're pushing everything. It has to be a middle. I think it has to be a middle ground where not everything is. I'm neither done by artisanal way or how it was done 100 years ago, but also like pushing into the future and blending them together. Oh, that's why it's like, okay, let's 3D scan the model, but the techniques of the garments and the pieces, it's so pure in the way of how it was done by a tailor for hundreds of years, no? So it's a mix and match of both things, no? I think.
That really interests me about your practice and seeing that clearly when you look at the garments. I mean, I can imagine the intense labor that goes into it and the craft and precision. Also, balancing that with digital tools to convey a narrative. So, kind of working between these two ways of working. And I was wondering if you kind of also see this, or I was even thinking about how, in some ways, maybe today, and you're talking about people's attention, maybe people wouldn't appreciate these techniques as much today, but actually, I think I find myself in some ways more exposed to these craft techniques, whether it's even like a brand like Loewe or something, like videoing how something is carved and they're using that as an advertisement for it. So, how do you also see these two things kind of collide today in a way?
Yeah, there's been like two things. When I was exposed for the first time into fashion and maybe haute couture, like these old techniques on garment making, that it started like with Frederick Worth or in the 1800s, and we have come with all that heritage of haute couture until now. It's such a craftsmanship that goes behind it, and as the French call it, the savoir-faire, like the way of how it's done, of how it's made. And it's great to see that all these brands and even like smaller brands are engaging into more unique pieces, maybe one of a kind, or maybe there's a very small production of it, because sometimes it's been something that I have been thinking for so long, like how many more fashion do we really need? You go to all these places of discount and all these places where you find so cheap production and fashion, and it's like, do we really need that much? How much is too much? No, the only thing that I dislike about everything that like all these brands embracing is it's obviously the price point, of all these garments. Like, and I'm very, yeah, I know how labor intense it is to do something like that, no? Like as you said, like all these craft people like doing and carving and doing everything by hand. Obviously, it comes with a price, but sometimes I think we are pushing a little bit more into the limit. Every garment is done by hand because everything is okay. Everything is sewn with a machine, but you go to any other brand and like high end and go into a lower brand, it's sometimes they have even the same finishing and the same construction, and it's like, then are we talking about the brand and everything that it's around it, and that's how why your prices are so high, and not even more about the craftsmanship? If you are communicating something that it's luxurious because of the way that it's made, like every way of your communication, both posts on Instagram or TikTok, your garments at the store, everything has to have the same communication. Everything has to be, because why are you buying a Chanel suit that has polyester in the prices of Chanel when you will be expecting like the highest quality of materials, of construction, of everything, and you see so many posts on TikTok like of garments that were bought in this like high-end stores, and they're already falling apart. And I think like even your Levi's are better constructed, and I'm not saying like Levi's is doing it right, but it's like it's obviously a lower price compared to any of these brands, and it's better constructed than those high prices. So it's like, is it only the hype of thinking about like, okay, I'm buying expensive garment or purse or whatever, it's gonna make it more high quality, and sometimes the problem is that it doesn't know. So yeah, I think the way that the fashion industry right now is it's interesting. Like it's interesting in many ways. If we want to put it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
I
I
appreciate.
don't know in a good way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I appreciate also your point about kind of this idea that oftentimes, of course, it is about the name of the brand, or I mean, also more important than even these questions is, okay, is it really the same finishing, but maybe one brand is able to exploit people more cheaply, or of
Yeah.
course,
Yeah, and we have
that's a big
seen so many like
consideration.
scandals. It was like a few months ago, like not so long ago, of these brands that they have like this very iconic bag, and people are fighting to get that bag. And then you saw that everything is produced in. They say that everything is produced in Paris or in France or wherever it is, and no, it's produced in China, and they have the same suppliers as other more retail brands of cheaper, no? So it's like, okay, the it's where are we heading, no? Like
Mhm.
we're messed.
I guess also what I was wondering, you both have all these aspects that you're talking about, but also looking at the conversations people are
Hmm.
trying to have in fashion, or maybe that are circulating a lot online. Or I'm even thinking about even just a few days ago seeing all the conversations about Demna's Gucci show, and
Yeah.
people saying, like, okay, it's a critique and it's about irony and cynicism. But then in
So you're
some ways
still
I kind
selling
of,
this
yeah, and sometimes in
into.
some ways I'm kind of like, is that's kind of a cop out in a way I see it as still. But when I look at your work, I feel it's maybe asking very different questions. So like, what do you see these conversations as that clothing can allow us to have, or maybe these larger questions of culture than just kind of recycling the same cynicism to sell a product, exactly as you're saying.
Yeah, I think that's a very good thing to put on the table. You said it very well on a word like cynicism. Like I think the fashion has come into, or the art world, or many creative industries have come into the cynicism, and that's very bad, both for the consumer, the public, the creator, and the world even, no? Like, and we go back to why do we need to produce garments are talking about cynicism or your the whole idea of the brand is just mocking or just like I think not everything has to be super profound or whatever, I know, but I think something that we were talking earlier is like why are we heading away so much of where spaces or garments or objects or experiences will give you that sense of aesthetic relevance in your life to make you feel emotions, to make you feel something, no? Like when we have come this far, when everything is so plastic, everything is so material, both in ideas, in the materials itself, like when we have this aesthetic experiences before and not so long ago, like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, the whole world was totally different. Like we were not so pushed into like just producing because of we need to produce. Why do we have to have 20 collections a year
Mhm.
in a brand? Like is it necessary? Like yeah, maybe it's necessary for the people who are on the top of the line where yeah, more money, more collections, it's more money. But do the world really need 20 collections a year? Do nature really needs to have their resources getting taken from just to get 20 different blouses, 20 different skirts, different pants, or whatever it is? Like, is it really necessary? So, where I'm going is like, we're not putting so much time into production wise of new ideas, of like if you only have one collection a year, two collections a year, one and a half, whatever it happened, but it's more sincere, something where you feel proud enough to put out in the world, and it's not just produce to produce. No, I was listening to a Mexican trend forecaster, and he was saying like it doesn't have to be perfect, but at least send something to the world. And it's like yes, yes and no, like yeah, because if it's only to put something out there in the world and it doesn't have to be perfect, we're not looking for perfection, but at least you're communicating something and you're making people and the consumer feels something, and not just because I need to do something and there I have to sell and I have yeah, everyone has to eat and everything has have to pay the rent. No, I know. But at least try to be more conscious about what you're putting out there in the world and talking about something, and it doesn't have to be everything. Maybe it's something so personal about yourself, but maybe with that talking about something that it's meaningful to someone and to maybe some part of your community and the people that are around you will make a more difference than just showing something because I have to show or I have to sell or whatever it is. So I think it's a moment where we have to give like two steps back and see what are we really what is our motto, no, in both our work, our life, or whatever we're doing now.
Yeah, I
I don't know.
agree. No, I completely agree. Also, because we are in a climate crisis. I mean, when you bring up nature, I mean, we're in a climate crisis, and fashion
World
is
crisis.
one is the, I mean, every level of crisis. I mean, human rights crisis, climate crisis, all of these, and they're all interconnected, but
Correct.
especially related to even the climate and fashion. I mean, so much waste comes from fashion, and realistically, I mean, people need like a uniform, like basics to wear every day, and then the rest of fashion maybe can function more as art that inspires people to have new thoughts about the world, or this, or as you're saying, actually pushes some narrative, even if it is a emotional one.
Correct.
And so, where do you see your fashion falling into this? in your designs, because in a way, or when I perceive them, I also, it's not even that I necessarily, to be touched by them, even need to wear them personally. Let's say maybe even just seeing them, or I imagine seeing someone else in the world that maybe has this one piece, and to see someone else like embody themselves so much is also touching. It doesn't even need to be yourself. It truly is like seeing art in the world. So I
Yeah.
wonder also how you imagine your own work fitting into these narratives.
I'm in this, and I don't want to sound pretentious or something.
No, no, no. I mean, you create beautiful work, so please.
But it's like in this moment, even right now in the collection that I'm working on, I'm seeing the garments, and even the construction wise is not as, how will I put it, like so artisanal. It is artisanal, no, because everything it's there's a lot of fabric manipulation put into the garments. The whole construction is based on workwear, which is originally thought about like the lowest way of construction, right? Because it's the
Mhm,
way of like how it's been inherited into what we wear industrially, no? Because everything is finished by machine, everything is on by machine. There's not so artisanal, real like handwork put into it. It's still, as I said before, like it's still made by hand because there's like hands putting the things on the machine. It's not
mhm.
like I put it outside from a from like
Yeah.
cartoons, no, like let's do a jacket, I press a button and there's a jacket here, no, like there's work into it obviously, but it's totally different from like this more sartorial way. So in what I'm coming from is like this collection is about pieces that are based on this workwear in these historical garments too, that are, because right now they're, even though that is something that we're still using, but originally there's they have been with us for 100 years at least. So reinventing that and putting these pieces of such significance, both aesthetically, not about just beauty, but also about the rawness of beauty, the rawness of the garment, the raw of the material, without using this walls or silks or whatever, but everything is I mean, every material has its own beauty, no, like it can be the most humble cotton, no, like I'm using right now only canvas, the canvas that's used on paintings. So it's not actually even a textile that it's supposed to be worn. It's actually supposed to be painted, no?
Mhm,
So getting into do the garments with that material and doing all this fabric manipulation, something that's very different from what I've experienced before on my garments. I usually, it's like the beauty of the color, the beauty of the finishing, the beauty of the volumes and everything. But here's the beauty of the volume, but also the beauty of the whole the fabric manipulation that it's on top of it. So I'm seeing these things as more of a piece that can be hang on your wall, as well as if you are feeling it maybe that day, or you're having a very special event or whatever, or doing it, use it for your daily life.
mhm,
Like the wear it, but it's also that beauty of something that you are proud to show at your home,
mhm,
and that you're proud to have it in on your space, as it is as a piece of, I'm saying that it's art, but as a piece of, we have this word in Mexico that it's arte objeto, that it's like it's an object that it's in between of art, but it also has its own practicality. So it's a mix of that, no? So I'm heading into more into that, that it's something like it doesn't have to be, because I'm really I'm really pushing myself and telling everything now here.
mhm. Thank
I'm
you.
because I'm so I'm pissed that it's like, why do we buy these beautiful garments that, yes, you can have it for an event or whatever, or people are buying right now only for the photo, no, only for the
Mm,
or the event or whatever, and then you hung it on the on your closet, or it's in a storage, and you don't see that garment anymore. No, like
Yeah.
it's like it should be something that it's you're proud of putting even on your living room as an art piece, as something that it's displayed, and it's something that I have been working on that even on my home. Like some pieces that I have done before, like I try the ways of like how do I hang it on a wall? Should I like if I flip it around or something, it looks like contemporary art piece, no, like it's something abstract or something. So it's something that I have been working for a while, but right now putting it on practice on this collection is like it should be something that you put on the wall and then wear it, and if and it's not hang with your other 100 jackets that you have on your closet, no.
Yeah, no, I really love that because I even feel that way about when I look at a space or in my own spaces, really do think of like fashion even in that way, or even a pair of shoes. If it's a pair that's very sculptural, you feel
Correct.
like this is a sculpture in my home. Like, why do I need to put this in a closet?
Yeah.
So,
Sorry to interrupt, but yeah, I went to back to Mexico for the holidays, and I went to with my dad to San Miguel de Allende. It's a beautiful town that it has become very popular with tourists, and it's been a while since I've been there. I went when I was like 5 years old, so I didn't remember anything. And we were in a little market there, and I saw like the traditional sandals that people when they're working on the fields to like corn or whatever, or living in small towns will wear. Like this is like the traditional authentic, the the bottom of the sandal is done with tires. So, so like the beauty of like the tire being carved into the sole of the sandal, the way that the it's put together, it has a beauty. So obviously with the weather here in Chicago that we have been freezing, obviously I haven't used them here. So I put it on my living room, and they're just there. Like I just want to see them because of the beauty of it, and it's not without my other pair of sneakers or whatever I have, because this is something special. It was done with so much care, the weaving of the sandals, the way that it was carved. It's a art piece for me. So I want to display it as it is. So I have been having like these jokes of like, why do you have your sandals like this? Because I love them. There's the because the people who made it, it comes from heritage. It comes from my own culture, something I have seen in so many photos and people wearing them. So it has a connotation, no? So it's something that you want to display as it is, no? So it's a little bit of coming into that term that I wanna do something as these artisans that it's worth putting on your living room as a display. As you say, that's something so sculptural and everything.
yeah, I love that story. I think it's very relatable because I think also so many of us relate to fashion in this way, or even like I think of that line in The Devil Wears Prada. Oh, you think this doesn't apply to you? Like as if
To you.
fashion doesn't apply to everyone, because it really does. Like even if you don't partake in it, you see
Correct.
others embody
Yeah.
it, and so I think anyone has a reaction to
Yeah, because
fashion.
totally. And I think something that I have seen since I moved here, obviously I saw it before in Mexico, but I think here is more prominent. Like everyone has its own uniform depending of where they are. So I see totally like, okay, this guy works in corporate, and this works in finance, or maybe this and I see my students, and they were what they wear is like totally different, no, like there it's more avant-garde, and it's distressed, and it's like more different. So everyone has their own uniform, and as a way as they be in society kind of thing. So totally, it's like even the guy who is like, oh, I'm not aware of fashion, but yeah, he wears like his Lululemon pants, no? So you are part of the conversation. You are, that's like, for you buying that brand is talks to you about something. So you want to be part of something, or you want to show maybe you have the money to buy it, or maybe you like the color and you didn't care about the brand, whatever it is. But yeah, totally agree. It's like it's very Devil Wears Prada. You think you're not part of the industry, but actually you are.
Yeah. Or how it connects to all these conversations about belonging and these larger ideas, even if they're unconscious. And this is kind of a pivot of a question, maybe, but as you mentioned your students, I also wanted to ask you, what is it like to teach fashion, or what are you trying to impart on your students, or even maybe what do they impart on you sometimes?
No, yeah, definitely. I think before I have taught for at least 3 or 4 years, but it was like a part-time job, something extra. I was invited to be in academia for my own school in Mexico. I studied at Centro University. And yeah, I was invited by the chair to teach there. And I went in between of undergrad and grad, and I have loved it, but it was always like something extra. But now that I have flipped into like a full time, and so more, the design has become a part time, and now the faculty has become my main work is having obviously more time with students. So I see it very much on my practice already. Like even though that it's been so little time still, like I just this happened in August of last year, but I already see like how it has done a change in my own work and in my own practice. So definitely it has changed. And what I always push in them to think is like talking about the very personal, like talk about you. And it's not I don't want to also get you to get inspired about yourself. No, like it's not about yourself, obviously. Because sometimes I have students that they work in their collection and it's yeah, it's inspired by me and my problems and like yeah, but yeah, let's like why don't you like okay, you're feeling this or you're having this thing happening in your life or whatever, why don't you go outside, do some research, talk to people, tell you their own experiences about that theme specifically, and maybe do something that relates to a greater, more broader public, no? And it's not about yourself because I always tell them like in a joke like but who are you to to be everyone outside of you be so interested in what you're about, no? But in terms of like making it personal, like tell us about something that you are really interested about, like, and always push it into something that it's not even fashion related, like make it something that it's outside of that little world and little box that we are putting into like fashion. It's always good to reference and to see what it was done before in terms of like garments or fashion, but get outside and go into the world and see like what's happening in the museums, what's happening in the art scene, what's happening in architecture, what's happening in terms of political terms, like everything can be a source of inspiration. So I will always push them to, but always in terms of personal, it's all about something that you're really interested about. If you don't do it of something that really moves you, it becomes a problem as you go through the process because you're tired of the references or you're tired of reading about a specific subject or and when you're working on this as an undergrad like you're working for a whole year on one collection, sometimes it becomes like too much for them. So it's always like do something that really you really like, and even though that you think like okay, how can I put that I don't know, I love ice cream or whatever and that's my passion, and or I love cooking and cooking is my passion and I love and something outside of fashion and I love that. Okay, let's do more investigation about maybe a technique of I don't know, dyeing that is also used in bakery or dessert making, and you can infuse it into fashion or get about inspiration on the silhouettes that maybe some bread or cakes maybe inspire you. There's like so many different ways that you can immerse into like different themes and subjects into fashion practice. So totally, I try to push them into working on themselves, trying to always to not think about this is it. Like, if I don't do like a spectacular collection right now, I won't have a job or I won't be creative director or whatever. It's like always putting into perspective, like this is a industry of hundreds of people working on, and it's an industry where you can find so many things. Like you can work in embellishments, you can work in pattern making, you can work in product development, campaign, styling, magazines, curatorial in a museum, preservation. Like there's many, many things that you can do that relates into fashion, and not everything is about creating collections and garments. So I always try to put them, okay, you're asked to do a collection for your capsule, but at the end you have to, if you are maybe into curatorial, but at the end you ended up studying fashion because you were interested also in that, but maybe infuse some of that preservation about textiles, go to a thrift store and find antique textiles and do your work based on that. I don't know, like there's so many different ways. Another thing that I always ask them is to collaborate. That's the greatest thing that you can do. I have some students are collaborating with, and the beauty of the SAIC here in Chicago, the School of the Art Institute, is that there's a multidisciplinary school. In the same building, you have people from ceramics, you have people from painting, you have people from architecture. So students are collaborating with ceramics and making buttons out of ceramics, or collaborating with other departments to produce 3D printed pieces for the garments. It's collaboration because that's the 99% of your work out there in the world. Like it's you don't build a house by your own. You have to collaborate with so many people, both in construction, it's the same as in fashion. Like you have to collaborate all the time.
That's amazing about your students. And it also makes me wonder the way you're talking about encouraging them to step outside the discipline to maybe gain inspiration. What
Correct.
are the ways that you step outside the discipline, not even just through, of course, being a human living in the world and experiencing, whether it's politics,
Culture.
other art, culture, but are there kind of other ways that you intentionally try to get inspired, whether it's researching or even just taking a certain kind of walk that makes you creatively inspired?
I have always done it. I my perfect date is going into a museum. Is whether it's with myself or with someone else, a friend or someone. I always go like a museum visit. Like that's a fuel. What keeps me pushing myself. Since moving to Chicago and having the art institute right there in my hand, I can go any day or on a weekend. And yeah, whether it's people watching too, that's also very interesting because you see like how people use their own clothes or they do their own stylings, and they manage themselves in the world, and also obviously to go and see art. So I always get very inspired because with the colors, the textures, the volumes, if it's a sculpture, that's always something that I love. An advice that I always give my students is go outside and go to the stores. Like what's like a retail, like go to all this the high end, low end, whatever it is, go to the stores, look at what people are buying, what's on sale, which colors are on sale, uh, and go in there, open the clothes, see how it's inside, open the pockets, see the whole construction of the garments, little details, because you never know, you get inspired by something that maybe you can reinterpret or whatever. Like maybe there was a small thing that you like, but maybe you right now, because experimenting and everything, you want to make it in ceramics. And instead of having a label on the traditional way of being embroidered, maybe you do it in a little plate of ceramic and you put it on the garment. So it can infuse your own work in so many different ways. But I always go like, as I mentioned, like into this military thrift store shop, and I was like blown away. Like they have a parka from the World War II, from the Japanese, and it almost looked like it was a woman's garment. Like it was so fashionable that I really wanted. So yeah, you always get inspired by something out there. So it's going outside and getting outside in the world. Not everything has to be on a screen.
Yeah, to
Yeah,
get away from our screens as maybe as much as possible, actually, that we
yeah,
can get so inspired, obviously, through looking at
correct.
things on our screens, but of course, engaging with, especially the physical, is so
Yeah,
important.
yeah,
Um, and I guess maybe a final question to end
yep.
on is, or actually maybe two, of first, what direction your own designs are moving in, but what emotion do you want people to feel the most, or what are some emotions you want people to feel the most when they look at your designs?
Mm. That's a big question. I think it depends every time that I'm doing different collections. I had the opportunity to show in my work here in Chicago at the school, and something that I saw most of the faculty and my students and the students that I haven't had still, I think it was a sense of joy in that sense, when they saw the colors, the volumes, the textures, everything. And that's something that I don't know if I have achieved that, but something that I have seen from what I was that in high school, and I saw my first runways, and that was like joy. And the when you get excited about what you're doing, like as a designer, and I'm not telling about myself, like looking for someone else and getting that experience of like, "Ah, that's why I'm here, like that's why I'm studying," and giving that emotion to someone else. I think that's the biggest beauty of like giving that same emotion that I felt seeing someone else's work, and to someone else, that's a beauty. I think it's happiness, is joy, and right now with this new collection is going into what I think is more raw emotions, like it's going into something a little bit more darker, if I think, but it really reflects a little bit of what's happening now in the world, I think. But still having that little joy and in the way of the materials and the color and everything. So yeah, definitely it's different, but we are there.
Yeah, maybe in some ways it's kind of a silly question because, of course, there's very different emotions attached to different garments. But maybe even how
Correct.
talking about the newest collection, that you can have emotion maybe at many different levels, and there's so many levels of engagement as well.
I something that I didn't mention is also inspired by Allen Ginsberg poem that it's Wichita Vortex Sutra, and it's a poem that he wrote while he was traveling throughout the U.S. and something about this poem, and it's a theme that he repeatedly mentions is about like that solitude and like loneliness, but sometimes that loneliness is not about just the sad part of it, but also so like the introspection that you can be in such a vast like a desert or a land where it's like you feel alone, but you have yourself and you have your own emotions and you have your own senses happening. So Yeah, he's even there's a phrase that I love that it's sensing the hair in our body, like that. Even that sense, like even like gives me chills. No, like just feeling all the hair in our body. It's like something that it's like wow. It's almost like garment because we're working with garments with so proximity to the body is like the closest thing that we have. uh, that's why it's so important for me in this new one that you have the full experience both on seeing and appreciating and displaying as well as wearing it. That's something very different from like an art piece. Not all the time you have something that you can wear and you can show. So I think it's a good in between of that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we connect so much to fashion, I think, is that
Yeah.
you interact with it in these different ways. I usually like to end on what question do you think both people engaging with fashion might ask that people don't traditionally ask, and also that designers should ask and don't always ask?
What's relevant? I
Mhm.
think as the industry is always heading into what's the next best thing, no? Like collection by collection. And we put ourselves as fashion designers, and I suppose like every single creative is what's the best thing. I think in the creative part, we shouldn't measure our success on both monetary or whatever. It will come obviously, because every industry is about producing and it's also about the business side. But in I think what you have to ask yourself is what am I like showing to the world, no? And what are how I'm communicating that to people outside of my own inner circle. I think when you communicate with even people, as you said, like are not interested in fashion, when you I think you have achieved something. So yeah, it's always asking you that question: where am I heading? What is the next great thing that I'm doing? But also how I am communicating, no, to the rest of the world.
I think that's a really inspiring point to end on. I can't thank you enough for having this conversation with me,
Thank you.
and I really enjoyed learning more about your work.
No, thank you so much, and it was great this conversation, and hopefully we'll have another.
Thanks so much for listening to Future Form with Lauren Franco, where creativity meets climate, culture, and change. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with someone who loves art, fashion, design, and cares about the future. Thanks for listening.